Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another jam-packed daily market update. This week is shaping up to be a good one as we see continuation out of that bull flag for Bitcoin. We will be starting the video off there. We'll be diving into Ethereum once again, and Ethereum isn't just significant in what it's doing for Ethereum, but significant for the overall altcoin sector. It's going to permission a broader alt season, and with the breaking of that capping descending grind line, we are now embarking on that. We also have some interesting news in regards to a mysterious institution accumulating another 50,000 Ethereum at 212 million. I am still waiting for CoinShares report to come out. I'll probably cover that tomorrow. I'm also going to riff on Ethereum being a $500 billion market cap. If Ethereum can get there, others can. I can see it going to $1 trillion plus, potentially a couple of trillion. You will have altcoins, and the next altcoin below that is, of course, XRP at 200 billion. You know, it's not out of the realms of possibilities. Certainly our price prediction for XRP is that it gets to $1 trillion in market cap. Actually, you could see multi-trillions as this asset class, which is very unique to many others because it doesn't just have all the investability of a stock, it actually has utility. And nobody's factoring that in. People, when they talk about market cap, don't understand the kind of restraints that crypto doesn't have on it due to its commodity status and investability. Kind of these tokens are global utility tokens. And we're seeing that in regards to perhaps how quickly Bitcoin's market cap has got to 2.4 trillion. So we'll be talking about that. And then I want to talk to you guys about probably one of the most asked questions I get, and that is, when should I sell? When is this market going to end? When are we going to enter another bear market? And the truthful answer is, I don't know. I happen to be far more leaning towards an extended cycle than the continuation of the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and I think that's explainable due to the institutional involvement that we currently see. You have no top indicators, your typical top indicators, which don't put too much weight on, and certainly technically there's nothing that gives me any cause for concern. But if we are to follow the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, the end of this year is when it ends, and that's going to potentially be an extremely bullish catalyst. I think you're going to have some volatility around the end of the typical Bitcoin 4-year cycle. But if it continues and we sort of fly in the face of it, I mean, you can imagine the broader trajectory that sets us on, which is typically the trajectory that assets that get ETFs for the first time end up going on, whether that be gold in 2004 in the US anyway. It did have one in Australia in 2003. Or whether that be the S&P 500 or the SPY as an ETF index that had its first index or ETF in 1994. And look at the trajectories they went on. I think crypto's on a similar one. This asset class hasn't even been able to become one. People are going to look back on people that bought crypto today as the same way people look at people that bought houses for a couple of thousands. That's the opportunity. You have the boomer's opportunity in front of you. And then I want to talk about inflation. We do have CPIs coming out. A little bit of worry people have about inflation resurfacing as we're seeing a slight uptick in it. It is a slight uptick. We'll put it into perspective and hopefully show you guys there's absolutely nothing to worry about. And when I start on Bitcoin, I always like to start with the bigger time frames. We've got lots of confluencing technical patterns that see Bitcoin's continuation. A lot of you that watch this channel are more into the altcoin sector as I am. And ultimately, you know, why this is important is because it's going to permission the broader space. And the last thing that we sort of looked at on the more immediate time frames was this bull flag. A lot of bearish news was coming out in regards to tariffs and things like this, and the traditional markets were getting hit quite hard. However, they've mostly recovered that. Mike Wilson from Morgan Stanley talking about the fact that we're in a new bull. I lean with him. I think actually that correction that we had on tariffs could be the only bear market you're going to see for a while, or true bear market you're going to see for a while. Doesn't mean there's not going to be corrections, but it's by the dip season, which was his own words and has been our words in regards to the cryptocurrency space. But we said when this was forming, despite the volatility in the bull flag, it looked very similar to the prior one and looks very bull flag-esque. And it's absolutely perfectly playing out, and you're seeing that continuation now. Remember, this is taking you to 136, 140k, depending on which bull flag you're using. And that gives us confluence with the broader patterns that we have. And last week was extremely significant for a number of reasons, whether it was the XRP lawsuit drop, or probably more importantly to me than anything, whether it was the Ethereum breakout of its sort of pattern that's been in really for about 4 years now. And it has now broken out of that sort of capping grind line, your resistance level. And I believe is on its way to sort of 14k. My play on this is Bitcoin, not Bitcoin miners, although some of them may actually pivot. We have already seen that with BTBT. is Ethereum strategy companies, and we're doing well on those, and I think we're going to continue to. Do become a Patreon, guys. You'll unlock my whole portfolio. I updated it yesterday, so we're very much sort of focused on 4 big plays. That's 4 big plays, and then we've got sort of coins around it. Zebek was a really good one for us in the group. A handful of weeks, 333% up when we checked it yesterday, which is sensational returns, and that's what this space has to offer. But Ethereum doing this is significant. There has been a mystery whale. The mystery institution created a new wallet and received over 10,000 ETH from FalconX in the past 2 hours. Over the past 4 days, they have created 6 wallets and accumulated 171,000 Ethereum, $667 million from Falcon, Galaxy Digital, and BitGo. This mysterious institution accumulated another 50,000. This is the strategy effects. Now, again, Ethereum can be a blueprint for broader altcoins. You're going to see XRP strategies. We could do a video highlighting the ones we think are already positioned to do well. SBI Holdings looks good in Japan. Ripple themselves as a company, I mean, they've got 40% of the XRP out there. But you'll see Hedera strategies. I was speaking to Duncan, and we mentioned it, the president of 21 Shares, and we were talking about SUI strategies. And there was about 30 of companies already looking to do this. You're going to get accumulation of these cryptos from everywhere, and their market caps are going to far exceed expectations. I mean, Ethereum really, if you think about it, already has $500 billion, 516 billion. That makes it more valuable than the likes of MasterCard, so on and so forth. It's one of the most valuable assets that there is in the world right now. Hasn't taken long. Bitcoin is just 2.4 trillion. Can it get to 20? Can Ethereum get to a handful of trillions? Can Ethereum get to where Bitcoin is? Can XRP get to where Bitcoin is? Can some of these others? I mean, I personally think, I'll give you a little bit of alpha here, XLM outperforms XRP. Just due to the laws of small numbers. Anyway, it's truly sensational what's going on. And I think this brings us on to the next sort of topic that I consistently get asked, and that is, when should I sell my crypto? Well, I don't know, to be honest with you right now. I'm not one of these individuals that say, sell on November the 11th, or sell here. But what we do know is, in regards to the 4-year cycle, you're looking at your 4-year cycle top towards the end of this year. And that means, dictated by the 4-year cycle, we should enter another bear market. I'm going to go ahead and say that isn't going to be the case this time around. Will you have some sort of volatility and dip introduced? Potentially. But I think if you fly in the face of that, that's an extremely bullish signal, because it throws the whole thing out of whack. You are going to have drawdowns in the markets. You are going to have bear markets. But the broader trend that crypto is going to embark on, now that it's been accepted institutionally as an asset, globally as an asset, retail as an asset. I mean, we're only at a stage where retail is actually gaining and being able to gain access to it. And the majority of retail is not in the market yet. If you look at it from a utility point of view, if you look at it from an ETH or a treasury company point of view, I mean, a utility point of view, I think that can fly in the face of what is a cycle really centered around Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin 4-year cycle actually does center around economic cycles, and I still think we've got a good time ahead of us for them. So if you're looking for your Bitcoin 4-year cycle to follow, you're looking to get out at the end of the year. I'm not going to be selling blindly based on the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. I'm going to be looking for some technical reasoning, like what we're kind of looking at for Bitcoin dominance right now, this being phase 3 and entering a downtrend. A more of a prolonged downtrend, to abandon ship. I'm going to be a lot more attentive to the markets, and it's very interesting because 0 of the 30 bull market peak indicators that have been used throughout previous bull cycles, don't put much weight in them, have hit so far. So whether that's your pi cycle top indicator, whether that's the pure multiple, whether that's the big, whatever it may be, I don't put much weight in really any of these. None of them have hit, and are substantially far off the majority of them. So I have got to admit, I actually think we're looking at more of an extended cycle, and that theory playing out this time around due to the embrace of this technology from an asset point of view, and we're going to get news on that, I believe, in September, or broad clarity on it, potential approvals, I don't believe that you're going to play out the 4-year cycle again in terms of this manner. You are going to potentially have a drawdown around it, but it'll be potentially short and sweet. And actually, we do typically see drawdowns around ETF launches. The hype builds up, buy the rumor, sell the news sort of thing. So, but I think it recovers a lot faster, and we see that continuation. So I'm not going to be selling my crypto. I'll let you guys, unless I see reason to, around the end of this year. I have a broader plan, and certainly some of the targets that we have lead us to have every merit to hold on. We have an event taking place today, not today, I think on Thursday or Wednesday, and it's US CPI. Now, inflation has been the cause for interest rate hikes, which we've done well in the face of, and a tight monetary policy. And right now, one of the reasons that they're not lowering interest rates is because of where inflation is. It currently sits at 2.7, and there's been a slight resurgence. It did go all the way down to 2.3. And people are worried, as they always are, about resurgence in inflation, just like they were over here. However, if you put it over a 10-year chart, inflation is still in a clear downtrend and actually back to where it was in 2018, 2020, 2000. You can see these kind of periods where it's been extremely similar. 2017. And I believe inflation is going to continue to come down. We're not seeing, even though we're seeing short-term rises and falls, which is natural, we're not seeing any broad, prolonged uptrends. And I don't believe that even if inflation comes out slightly higher at 2.8, the consensus it stays the same, that you're going to see that major resurgence. And I think central banks have every reason to cut interest rates. The Fed just being particularly stubborn. However, we know that Trump is wanting JP out. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. I think sometimes it's better the devil you know, in my opinion. And I don't think JP has actually done a particularly bad job. All being said, we've been unpopular for saying that, but I think compare him to Andrew Bailey or some of the other central banks around the world, and actually look at where the markets are, look at where the economy is, in the face of everything. And yes, they might have caused a lot of the issues. I don't think he's done too much of a bad job. Could he have done a better job? Yeah, absolutely. But we're very good at human beings at judging people hypocritically, knowing that we couldn't do anywhere near even a similar job ourselves. So that's really it from me. Interesting, we've got the inflationary stats. My thoughts on when to sell. I think you need to be a little bit more fluid when it comes to the markets and perhaps have a technical understanding of when to sell. When structures break down, when there's technical reason to sell is when I'm going to be selling, not based on the 4-year cycle, which I could see having every merit to not be null and void, but to certainly have a lessering effect due to all the catalysts that we have going on. What we're seeing technically for Bitcoin and certainly Ethereum is just monumental, fantastic, and really it's great for the broader altcoin sector, which is set to change your lives. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful Monday, and I'll see you all in the next one.